Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. I have a viewer-recommended video for you guys today. I actually got a message earlier on from a subscriber, or I don't know if they were a subscriber, but a viewer, asking me to show you guys tips on how to evaluate 4-3 defensive ends. They said specifically they were having trouble, though the Jacksonville Jaguars and Yannick Ngakoue is not performing very well for them. And shout out to Brent Murray, that he's the one that commented asking for this video, so I want to get this video up for him and for the rest of the audience, because there are a couple stats in here that I'm going to show you guys that directly correlate with why a player of this caliber, a guy that's 84 overall, very good player, would not be performing well in Madden 20. Now, the first things that we want to always look at when we evaluate positions are the physical attributes, and so we first have to talk about what are the expectations for that specific position. And so defensive ends in general are, I don't want to say defensive ends in general. I want to say 4-3 defensive ends are expected to be the pass rushers of the team, right? They're expected to be the ones that generate the pass rush and get sacks on the quarterback. 4-3 defensive ends are, 4-3 teams rely on their defensive line to generate pressure and allow the linebackers to drop back in coverage and make the tackles and make the plays. And that's how 4-3 defenses work. But when you compare that to a 3-4 defense, your 3-down linemen in a 3-4 defense are essentially block eaters. They're supposed to try and fill up blocks, fill up gaps, and allow the linebackers to make the plays and make the pass rush. And so your outside linebackers are getting the pass rush, and your middle linebackers are the ones roaming and making the plays. Whereas in a 4-3, you have all of the linebackers. You have one middle linebacker and two outside linebackers. They're roaming and making the tackles and whatnot, while the defensive line is trying to get the pressure. And so these guys are considered edge in a 4-3 scheme, whereas if you're talking about a 3-4 scheme, the outside linebackers are the edge players. So that's kind of where we fall in terms of the responsibilities for this. The responsibilities for 4-3 defensive ends is that they both have to be able to get pressure, and they have to be able to hold the edge against the run in order to allow their linebackers to make tackles in the running game. And so we first, like I said, have to talk about the physical attributes. So what do you need in order to be a successful defensive end, in order to be a successful edge player? Well, I would argue that the most important stat for a successful edge player, number one, first and foremost, physically speaking, is going to be their strength. They need to be able to go up against offensive linemen, period. I mean, that just is what it is. And you'll see a lot of edge defenders, a lot of 3-4 outside linebackers and 4-3 defensive ends that have less than 80 strength, and that just isn't good enough. Now, so that was the first thing I was going to look at with Yannick Ngakoue. That was my first suspicion, is that's why maybe this person was having issues with Yannick Ngakoue. But that's not the fact. He has 80 strength. That's still a little bit low for any defensive end, in my opinion, because most offensive linemen are going to have like 85-ish strength. That's kind of the average. And so he might get eaten up in the run game a little bit, and he might struggle to get off of blocks because his strength isn't completely up to par. And so that's something you want to look at first and foremost when you're evaluating young defensive ends, is their strength up to par? Are they going to be able to compete with offensive linemen? So that's the first thing. The second thing is these guys have to be quick. They actually have to have speed, and the reason being is that they're pass rushers. If they're slow, like, a 3-4 defensive lineman that doesn't have a lot of speed, if I go over to like the Steelers, for example, and look at their defensive linemen, they don't have a lot of speed. And so like 72 for Cam Hayward, or you look at a D tackle, 60, 75, not very good speed for 3-4 defensive linemen, because it's not their responsibility in most cases to do the pass rushing. However, these guys have to be quick enough to get after the quarterback, and so you're looking for 80 or better speed as well with these defensive ends in the 4-3 scheme. Well, Yannick Ngakoue has that, so that's what you're looking for. You're looking for 80 or better in both of those categories. You're also looking for 80 or better acceleration. The higher you get with the acceleration, the quicker this player is going to get off the ball, and the quicker they're going to get up to speed. So we got really good looks with Yannick Ngakoue here. You're looking for 80 or above, ideally 85 or above in terms of acceleration, and then the agility is going to determine how well they adjust to the ball and, move themselves around to pursue the ball and get into the right gaps and stuff. So those are the physical attributes that really matter. And so that's what we're looking at initially, is to see, okay, is this player physically able to perform their job? And yes, Yannick Ngakoue is a guy that's physically able to perform his job. But the things that we want to look at after that are his defensive abilities and how he's going to be able to perform his job. And there are a couple stats that you're going to want to look at for that, and those are going to be his power move, finesse move, and his block shedding. And so initially you look at this and you look and you say, okay, well, he's got good power move and good finesse move, so ideally speaking, he should be able to get a good pass rush and make a move on the players that he's playing against. He's got good hit power, good tackling, you know, he's got 80 and above in all these categories, and so he's got one really good pass rush move with an 89 finesse move, and so that's good, and that's something that you want to see. But this is where the first issue presents itself, is that he has 89 finesse move and not 89 power move. And so what I realize, and what you guys have to realize, is that the power move is much more effective in Madden than the finesse move is. And that's just by nature of the way that the game plays. And so he's a little bit of a weaker player. He's not super strong, and so the finesse move kind of fits his style. But the finesse move, from my experience, is a lot less effective and gets sacks and gets the player off blocks a lot less than a power move does. And so that's the first issue, is that if you really want your pass rushers, especially if they're defensive ends, to do really well in the pass rush game, you want to focus on their power moves. No matter what scheme you're in, the power move is going to be more effective. And the additional reason for that is that the power move is effective in the run game. If you start doing finesse moves when you're trying to get off blocks in the run game, you're going to get pushed backwards, and you're going to get yourself out of lanes and out of gaps, and you're going to really, hurt your defense if you're trying to perform finesse moves in the run game. However, if you have a strong power move, it's also effective in the run game because it's going to push offensive linemen back, it's going to get disruption in the backfield, and so the power move is automatically a dual threat and much more effective whenever stopping an offense and trying to get to a quarterback, trying to get to a running back, trying to disrupt plays. And so that's the first issue that I'm seeing with Yannick Ngakoue, is that he's more focused towards finesse moves and less focused towards power moves. So there are times when he is going to get eaten up in the run game because he's much more of a finesse type of player than a strength type of player. He's not very strong, doesn't have good power moves or anything like that. But then there's one more huge issue that is the most important for defensive linemen, for edge rushers. The very most important stat for these guys, above all else, is the block shedding stat. The block shedding stat is going to affect how well they get off the blocks in order to stop the run, and how well these power moves and finesse moves work to get them off of their pass blocks. That's just the way that it works. The block shed factors into everything, and the block shed stat is everything for defensive ends and for edge players. And that's where the big issue comes in with a guy like Yannick Ngakoue. Yannick Ngakoue is a very talented player. He's an 84 overall. But you look at his block shed, and it's only 59, which is really, really low and really poor. And that is telling me right there by itself why Yannick Ngakoue is not being successful for the person that wanted me to make this video. You need to have 75 or better at a minimum block shed for them to have a successful, or for them to have a chance at successfully shedding a block or successfully executing a pass rush move. That's just the basics of it. And if you want them to successfully get off blocks with consistency in either the run game or the pass rush game, you need them to have 80 or better block shedding. And Yannick Ngakoue is at 59, so basically all of his other stats are useless at this point because he can't get off a block no matter how well he does a finesse move or a power move. He's not going to be effective in the run game. He's not going to be effective in the pass rush game because he can't shed a block. That's exactly what that means, is that the higher your block shed stat, the higher you're going to get off pass and run blocks. It's very simple, it's very straightforward. And so in order to get this stat up, you're probably going to have to push XP into his run stopper grade and get his block shed up. And there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to increase this stat. And so I suggest you try and shy away from players that have a really low block shed stat. This is the single most important stat for any front seven player. I guess I shouldn't say any front seven player, mostly defensive linemen and outside linebackers in a 3-4 scheme, and defensive edge players and defensive linemen in the 4-3 scheme. And so that block shed stat is really important. And I could go on and on about this, but just know that that block shed stat is going to completely hinder Yannick Ngakwe's ability to do his job. Sure, he's an 84 overall. Sure, he's got good finesse move. He's got good strength. He's got good physical attributes. It don't matter if he can't get off a block. It's that simple. And so, you know, to be truthful with you, Josh Allen will probably play better than Yannick Ngakoue, even though his stats are overall worse, because he has significantly higher block shedding ability. And that's really, really important for defensive linemen, defensive ends, and edge players. That's really, really important. That's the number one stat that you need to be looking at and build around that. And so all the time I say about building around physical attributes, you need to build around block shedding. If your guy can't get off a block, he's going to be useless. And so moving on from that, there are a couple other stats that do matter. In terms of the 4-3 defensive edge, you're going to want to talk about stats like play recognition and awareness, because that's going to determine how well they do their job in terms of, you know, are they going to rush it like they're rushing the quarterback? Are they going to do a pass rush move? Or are they going to try and defend it like a run defender and try and hold the edge or whatever? And so they're going to be able to quicker, you know, assess that if they have a higher play recognition ability or a higher awareness ability. And so those are the other stats that matter. And then we get into just some of the basic concepts about the position. That's basically all that matters stats-wise. That's what you want to think about. You want them to have a good block shed, and you generally want to focus on the power move. You can have a good finesse move. It's not gonna kill you. I mean, if you have a good number on this, like the 89, they should be successful with it, as long as you complement that with a good block shed stat. However, one of the other things that you want to think about is who your players are going up against. Generally speaking, in my experience, left tackles in the game are harder to pass rush against than right tackles. Generally speaking, I get a lot more sacks from the right side of the offensive line than the left side. That's just my personal experience. That's what I see more often than not. And so you have to consider maybe Yannick Ngakoue is also just getting bad matchups. Generally, if I was playing as the Jaguars, I would probably see a lot more sacks with Calais Campbell than I would with Yannick Ngakoue. And the reason being is that my left end is going against their right tackle, which is generally the worst tackle, and generally speaking where more pressure is coming from, and so I'm going to get more pressure off that side. So if I really want Yannick Ngakoue to perform better, my first step would be to switch sides. I always put my strongest pass rusher at the right end or right outside linebacker position, depending on if I'm playing 4-3 or 3-4. I always put them at the right side because they are going against the stronger tackle, and they're going to have to do their job on their own. And then I put my weaker guy, the guy that's underperforming, and oftentimes when I'm playing Steelers franchises, that's Bud Dupree, I put him on the left side, or in this case, the left outside linebacker position, or left end position, which is where I'd put Ngakoue. And I user them, and I try and get them off blocks, and I try and get them into the backfield and try and get them to be disruptive. And even if I'm letting them do their own thing, they're going to have an easier time of getting the quarterback if they're playing on this left side and going against the right tackle than they are if they're going on the right side. And so that's the other consideration that you want to think about whenever you're evaluating 4-3 defensive ends is, you know, where are they lining up in respect to each other. And I can give you a great example with the Steelers whenever I'm talking about my 3-4 outside linebackers. They have TJ Watt at the left outside linebacker spot and Bud Dupree at the right outside linebacker spot. Well, there's a significant difference in their overall, and so I put Bud Dupree at left outside linebacker because that's where I get more pressure from. It's easier to blitz from that side, easier to get pressure from it. You're going against worst offensive linemen. I let TJ Watt match up against the best offensive linemen and try and get sacks from that position. It just spreads out the talent better. It allows your weaker players to have an advantage and try and get pressure from the side that's easier, and it helps balance out your team. And so those are the things that you want to consider. Like I said before about the 4-3 defensive end position, you really want to focus on that block shed stat. With any type of pass rushing player or run stuffing player, you're not going to have success with any player if you don't have a good block shedding stat. That's really important for all of those guys that you're trying to have successful in the pass rush game and in the run stuffing game. If they don't have a good block shedding, they're just not going to be successful. I mean, it's just case in point for you. You're looking at Yannick Ngakoue, and the reason that this video came about is somebody saying that they're not having success with him. Well, I can tell you, 90% of that reason is because he's just weak with block shedding. He's got 59 block shedding that's going to do it for you. And then after that, you want to maybe consider moving him to the left side as opposed to the right side, because generally speaking, you're going to get more pressure from that left end spot than the right end spot. So hopefully this helped you out. Hopefully this helped everybody out that's watching the video. If it does give you guys some information and some ideas on what you need to do in order to get more production out of your 4-3 defensive ends, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more, and comment down below what you guys would like to see next. Hopefully this helped you guys out. I really hope it helped you. I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you guys have a great night. Have a good one.